Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn Smith, and I am the voice and the astrologer for this YouTube channel, Nonconformist Conscience. I have some updates, and then we're going to jump into this full moon, but I just want to tell you guys that I have been trying to make this video since last week. I have the transiting Mercury retrograde in conjunct my natal Mercury. And I don't think I've ever had to deal with a Mercury retrograde quite so intense before. So my apologies that I'm getting this to you guys on the date of. I am hell-bent on doing this video. I have just had to deal with so many snafus, my computer not working, my external hard drive crashing, not being able to send recordings, having to figure out other ways to do recordings. It's been intense. And I also have a kiddo who is home sick today, who I just had a lovely session with a client, and my son came up here. It is his playroom. You can see stuff kind of on the floor. And I haven't had time to pick it up, but again, I'm hell-bent on doing this video. But he even came up here like in his underwear, jumping on the sofa as I was with a client. So luckily, it seems like he's feeling a little bit better, but it has been a very interesting past few days. So my apologies that this is coming out on the day of. Before we jump into your full moon, I wanted to tell you all that today is the last day. If you are Leo and you want to book the birthday special, book it. It doesn't have, obviously, I don't have appointments for today, but you can book this for a week or 2 weeks out. You can still get the Leo birthday special, but it just has to be booked by 12 a.m. on the 20th, which is in a few hours, about 12 and a half hours that you have left to book that. And then it's going to switch over to the Virgo birthday special. So Virgos, it's going to be your turn to book an appointment with me if you want. Again, I will reiterate that is a 90-minute reading on Zoom with me where we go over your natal chart, any questions that you have about it, and also your solar return, which is looking at what's coming up for you for the next year in order to help you evolve. So there's that. And then also, I did want to say I am doing a lecture for the Evolutionary Astrology Online Conference. I'm going to be lecturing over the asteroid Cassandra. If you want to sign up for that lecture or for the whole online conference, you can find that at jwgaea.org, and I will put the link in the description below. So, without further ado, let's talk about this full moon. And I love this full moon. I think that, we have been dealing with a lot of heavy energies lately. It seems like for, oh my gosh, like the past year and a half, really 2.5 years. And we've had some really intense lunations happen the past few months. And this lunation, I feel like, is a really powerful one. It is speaking to so many different dynamics. We've got a couple of T squares going on, one in particular with the moon, another one in particular with that Jupiter Mars conjunction. And so let's talk about this. What is this meaning for each one of us? And if you don't see this on the day of, these energies are still going to be felt for the next week. So this is perfect. So let me share the screen with you all to show you what I am talking about here. Now, I want to tell you all, especially for those who are learning astrology or wanting to be an astrologer, when you're looking at energies for the collective, you want to look at a specific transit and put it for Greenwich, England. This is for the collective. And when you do this, not only do you go by the signs, but you can go by the houses as well. So I'll be talking a bit about the houses and the signs and what this is really reflecting for us. That way you can consciously utilize this energy. So, as we know, this is a Aquarius full moon, and a full moon happens whenever the moon opposes the sun. And so, this is really interesting. I want to point out not only do we have a moon in the first house in Aquarius, but we have Pluto retrograde in the 12th. And both are ruled by Uranus. And Uranus is in what we call a T square to the moon and to Mercury and the sun. So, what is this reflecting? Well, let's talk a little bit about the archetype of Aquarius for just a second. I'll pull this chart back up. But Aquarius is, if you are a student of evolutionary astrology, I'm sure you all have heard that Aquarius is about the liberation and the freedom from the known. It's also dealing with liberation from our own conditioning. And when we liberate from conditioning, so meaning something that's been learned that really isn't in resonance with who we are on an individualistic level, on a soul level, as we liberate, it can create a lifestyle change. And that is so much what Aquarius is about, is this kind of lifestyle change. It's also our higher intelligence, our higher mind. It is the higher intelligence of creator. And we have a lot of focused energy around Aquarius, not just because of the moon being an Aquarius moon, but also that Pluto being retrograde in the sign of Aquarius. And retrogrades, they denote an individuating kind of function, which is definitely on par. It's a part of the archetype of Aquarius. So individuation is simply, it's something that it's where you get to start to ask your own questions for yourself. If you're liberating from the known and the familiar, then you would be someone who is asking yourself these questions. Is this what I believe? Is this what I think? Is this in alignment with my values? Is this in alignment with my own unique individuality? And so what it does is it will speed up an evolutionary process. This is what retrogrades do. And it's because you can think of it with, it's a retrograde, so it's the re's. It's a repeat, relive, redo in order to resolve. So Pluto retrograde in the 12th house in Aquarius can have us repeating and reliving and redoing certain types of dynamics in our lives that on a soul level we're wanting to jettison from within us. It could be where we're over identified with some type of learning, some type of um understanding or pattern that's known and familiar in our lives. And with Pluto in that 12th house, that's wanting us to culminate and dissolve these old structures within and have this liberation process. And then this moon in the first house in Aquarius is speaking to one, it's a full moon. Something has reached its limit, its fullness, and something is needing to be thrown off. That's the opposition of the moon and the sun. And so the sun is really illuminating what this is. And with the moon in the first house, then as we are objectifying these emotional dynamics, because that's what a full moon tends to bring up, is all of our emotional content that we're needing to throw off. This then pulls in that first house of starting this brand new evolutionary cycle of a lifestyle change, of an individuating function, of thinking for oneself, of reintegrating some type of unique individuality that could really serve as a function to help the collective. The collective is an Aquarius archetype. It could serve to help the community that we're in. It could serve to help us mirror to those around us what it is that maybe they felt alone in or alienated in, seeing as those are archetypes. It could be helping and your friends see that it's something that can be actualized and done by just them observing you. And that's part of this moon being in the first house, is it's initiating this new process of where we could come together in community through liberating from old values, old beliefs, old ideas. And then Uranus is in Taurus, squaring this moon, and then Mercury retrograde and the sun that are conjunct. And so this can be this double emphasis on needing to throw off any type of intellectual material or old ideas that are just not conducive to the path that we're on anymore. And so it can bring up all types of emotional dynamics so that way we can liberate from it, or it can spark new ideas, or it can metamorphose old ideas so that way we can use that Mercury and Leo to self actualize in some type of way. It's also seeing as that Mercury and the sun that are conjunct fall in the seventh house of that chart for the full moon. So it can be about having your own personal voice of authority within society, viewing yourself as an equal. Maybe you've struggled to feel that way. And so there needs to be this objectification of why. Is there something that you've over identified with in the past that told you that maybe, and that you bought into the belief that you weren't capable, or that it's just not conducive, when really that's a lie? And so there's this need to self actualize through viewing oneself as an equal, the seventh house. And through doing so, you can take in more stimulus that is pertinent to your ongoing evolutionary journey at this time, thus helping one to culminate old structures, then liberating from that, individuating and blazing a new trail, starting a new path. And then the other dynamic that I really want to speak about here is we have this beautiful Jupiter Mars conjunction happening in the fourth house, ruled by Mercury retrograde. But this is in a T square with Venus, which is also ruled by Mercury retrograde. And the other side of this T square is with Saturn, which is opposing this Venus. So what is this speaking to? Let's break this down for a second. That Mars-Jupiter new phase conjunction, Mars is ruling the North Node in Aries, which falls in that second house of this chart. There are new desires and new patterns that we could individually be wanting to act on that foster and nurture a deeper relationship to self. It's about this continuing journey of understanding ourselves in order to fortify our inner relationship to self, the North Node in that second house. And with Mars and Jupiter in Gemini, but in that fourth house, this is really about expanding upon and acting on the desires to expand upon our own inner emotional dynamics, to really learn, Gemini, what is going on inside of each one of us. Where does this come from? What are these feelings and these emotions that are arising? For some people, it can give you the courage to look within, seeing as Mars is there. Jupiter can act like a magnifying glass. It expands anything. So it can make something really clear to you, like, this is what's going on. And with Jupiter and Mars square in a T square to Venus and Virgo in the 8th house, there's this need to really get to the bottom of what it is that maybe isn't quite right on an emotional or psychological level, and then to self-improve from within in order to strengthen the soul. Again, that Venus is ruled by Mercury retrograde, same with that Jupiter and Mars. And so there's this big internalized function. Mercury's retrograde, Venus, we're really looking at internalized process, seeing as it's in the sign of Virgo. So it's yin energy moving in. So there's this need to really self-actualize through self-improving upon our relationship to self. And the way we do that is through expanding our own emotional understanding. To me, this looks like a full moon that could really help us to expand upon our own emotional intelligence, our own inner emotional reality, our own inner emotional dynamics. And then the other side of the T square between Mars, Jupiter, and Venus is Saturn and Pisces retrograde. This is where we're dissolving these old structures in order to self-improve. So a lot of us could be learning about where we feel guilt, where we feel shame, where we feel judged, where we're maybe overcritical of ourselves. Is that impeding upon you changing your lifestyle? Is that impeding upon you acting on your desires? Is it impeding upon you acting on your ideas to self-express or to self-actualize in some type of way? Is it impeding upon you doing purposeful work? So there's a lot of content around learning about our emotional dynamics, Gemini in the fourth, dissolving and restructuring through liberation, through getting into the emotional body as an act of self-love, Mercury and the sun in Leo, as a way to also self-improve, Venus and Virgo in that 8th house. And we also want to remember that Venus and Virgo is that ruler of the moon's ruler, Uranus in Taurus. So again, this heavy emphasis on our personal relationship to self. The South Node is in Libra, and Venus is ruling that as well. And that's in the 8th house. So there could be a lot that's coming up where we're able to self-improve upon our other relationships through improving upon our relationship to self by getting to the bottom of, are we making excuses? Are we denying some type of emotional reality? Are we denying our own emotional reality? Are we making excuses for others in order to not deal with what's going on inside of ourselves? Um, this is also really important to understand because Ceres retrograde in the 11th is in a T square as well to the nodal axis. And the resolution for this series is the South Node. So what does this mean? And remembering that Ceres is ruled by Saturn, which is in that T square happening with Venus, Jupiter, and Mars. So there's a lot going on. These are all what we would call repeating signatures. So in order to have self-mastery, we have to self-improve, Venus and Virgo, through looking at the extremes, South Node and Libra. And Ceres in Capricorn, falling in that 11th house, is really about us liberating it from the old structures as a way to restructure. And the only way we can do that is through an emotional maturation process. And how do we emotionally mature? Through learning about our emotions. Jupiter conjunct Mars in Gemini in that 4th house. This is also on a collective level where we're needing to recover how we structure the collective through aligning ourselves with the natural function of Libra, which is giving, sharing, and inclusion, and getting to the bottom of why maybe imbalances have played out within our social structures because we're not really honoring that natural law of giving, sharing, and inclusion. So there's that on that collective level. We are seeing it out in the collective right now with what's going on. Um, we're in this kind of renaissance period. That's why we feel like things are kind of getting hectic and crazy and extremes are going on and limits are being reached. A lot of this is really reinstated with that Ceres square the nodes, with the resolution being that South Node. But the other dynamic on a personal level I want to talk about with Ceres in Capricorn retro, um, in the 11th house, is it's not just about liberating from old structures, Capricorn, old conditioning. It's about being able to ask and answer your own questions and not giving authority away. Series so much has to deal with about recovering one's own true nature. And as we recover our own true nature through looking at the South Node Libra and the eighth, getting to the bottom of where extremes and balances have played out and our emotional and psychological dynamics stemming from conditioning, we then get to be our own authority. And so series is really asking us for us to objectify our emotional dynamics, to learn about them in order to have a restructuring process. This means that we're trying to learn more about natural and timeless principles regarding what do I believe? What do I value? What do I need? Can I ask for that? Can I receive it? Am I able to give back? Are there things that are my relationships, especially friendships, seeing as there's so much Aquarian dynamics? Are my friendships, are my community, is my lifestyle rooted in equitable relationships with others? If not, um, there might need to be a liberation from that through self-mastering, looking at why am I in that situation? I also feel like with Ceres retrograde square the nodes right now, I tell this to clients. I told it to a client earlier. I'm a gal who has a lot of Capricorn. The Capricorn is where we come face to face with the need to be self-determined. So there can be instances that come up this next week to 2 weeks where we're repeating something in order to be self-determined to not make the same choice we once did. And how we do that is through that Capricornian self-reflection and making a correct judgment. We can't do that if we're not looking at our own emotional content, if we're not expanding upon it, using that Jupiter and that Mars and Gemini and that fourth house. So to me, this full moon is really helping us to throw off any old information that's impeding upon us understanding our own emotional dynamics. It's also about expanding upon new um, information on an internalized level to have this emotional maturation process. Here's the thing is, I think so often as humans, we want to be complacent. Like, I've been doing the work and like, I'm in this really great place. And we can be that's amazing. But there's always work to be done. And there's always more maturing and more wisdom that could be had. And Venus and Virgo is really highlighting this as well. It is highlighting this function. Sirius is trining that Venus and Virgo. So a lot can be coming up around, has there been information that has been taken in through the voices of others, Libra South Node, that have induced um, internalized self-criticism or self-judgment or guilt? There's this need to understand why and where that comes from. And there's a need to objectify that. Should I be feeling this way about myself? Is this natural or is this learned? Does this need to be liberated from? How could this ultimately change my life? How could this help me to fortify my own inner relationship to self? There's so much self-actualization that can be going on right now. I mean, I feel like that's always happening, but this full moon is really giving us this burst of energy. It's this powerful, deep insight on an intellectual level, but it's also truly emotional intelligence. Um, so there's more to be talked about with that. I want to give a brief uh understanding of what emotional intelligence really is, a great definition, seeing as we've got this Gemini Aquarius energy. I think a definition could be warranted. So I wanted to make sure that I could articulate this well, so I went ahead and I looked this up for us. But emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. So I want us to think about this. If we've got Jupiter and Mars in this fourth house, we're wanting to learn about our emotions and it pulls in the 10th house polarity, the emotional reality, what's going on. And then we've got a moon in Aquarius, and Aquarius is about intelligence. So there is this, and it's in a, you know, it's starting to trine. This moon is starting to trine that Mars Jupiter conjunction. It's trining by sign. So as we're taking this in, we're objectifying and learning about what's going on inside of us. We can have an emotional maturation process that helps us not only, again, pulling in that second house, North Node, Mars in the fourth, the ruler of that, helping us to understand our relationship to self, but our interpersonal relationships. That is that South Node in Libra. When I think of judiciously, that word, that's Libra, right? It's this equity, equality, having things, being able to communicate. And then, as I've spoke about, this full moon has so much to do with our own inner expression and outer expression. Is there something you need to express? Are there conversations that need to be had? This has been something that keeps coming up in the astrology lately, especially right now. Cassandra is retrograde. It's in the sign of Capricorn as well. It's, there's this resurgence of us meaning on individual levels to recover our voice as a way to express ourselves judiciously in order to have equality. There's also the lessons with Libra of knowing who to share with and who not to. And this is also very much highlighted with that South Node being in the eighth house. You know, this can also be where we are recalling. Aquarius deals with all of our memories, especially our long-term memories. It can deal with trauma. We could be recalling instances where we felt like there was hypocrisy or undue justice, or we weren't heard or listened to. South Node Libra, Cassandra, and the anger that can permeate and how it affects our emotional dynamics. And so there's a need to really understand and cultivate, what is this about? And ultimately, we choose everything in our lives. That series and Cap is asking for us to take accountability for the choices that we've made in order to have our own healing. And that's part of Saturn series ruler being in Pisces. So much healing can happen when we take a step back and we look. I'm really not a victim of this. I'm always open on here. I'm very open with clients. I have Virgo in my chart, and there have been times in my life where I did feel victimized. I don't really resonate with being a victim. I have way too much Capricorn, I feel like, for that. But I can self-reflect Capricorn, Ceres and Cap, and see where I made incorrect judgment, Capricorn, that led to situations where I became victimized. And then it takes away the victimization because I realized, like, oh, these were actually my choices. And that's where Capricornian accountability and Virgo self improvement come in. And it marries to have wisdom through discernment and correct judgment. So, really, this full moon can be highlighting all of this and having us look at why we made the choices we made in the past, what we need to do to have more self love, Leo, what we need to do to become more self sufficient and to honor our own relationship to self, that North Node in the second house. So, there's just a lot that could be coming up for each one of us throughout the next week to 2 weeks. Uranus is going to retrograde soon. It's going to give us uh an oomph in being able to liberate from a lot of these dynamics that could be popping up right now into our consciousness, or this remembering of things that have happened in order to really clear out and make space for new to come in. And quite frankly, I feel like this moon is about knowing oneself and how unique. each one of us are. And really understanding how unique each one of us are comes from we're humans, we are souls in a human structure. We are emotional creatures. And so the best way to know oneself is to know what's going on inside on an emotional level. And that Jupiter, Mars, and that fourth house is really helping us to get in touch with that. It's about learning more and more about ourselves. It's This is why I love evolutionary astrology, one of the many reasons, because it's so scorpionic and Plutonian in nature that it's peeling back the layers of the onion. We're never really done. We are so multifaceted. Like once we feel like we've just gotten done with something, another layer comes back and we get to understand ourselves even more deeply. And so this full moon can really have us peeling back more layers of the onions to transform, to metamorphose old limitations, to heal, to grow, to evolve, to understand oneself. And what is better than understanding oneself? This is this full moon. So I wanted to come on here. I wanted to talk about this. I know this is a little bit shorter of a video. I, like I said, I have a sick kiddo. My kids went back to school last week. I've had Mercury retrograde internet things happening, and I just have to laugh. Like it's it's all absurd and out of my control, and there's nothing I can do. And uh quite frankly, it's making me think about my North Node in Pisces. Like, it's just, you just have to surrender to what's going on and that you can't really control anything. So, there's this. I will try to make another video this week. I know that my videos have been a little bit more short, but luckily, I love doing videos. I love putting things out for you guys. If you have more ideas about what's something you would want to learn about, what is something you would want me to teach about on here? Is there something that someone else isn't really talking about? It doesn't have to be about transits, it could be about a sign or an archetype. Please comment. I would love to do that. Um, I'm really starting to have an increase in the people that I work with, whether it be professionally or just clients coming in. And so I've been getting busier, and I this channel is for you all. Um, and so those of you who come to this channel and you've subscribed, you get the notifications, you watch the videos. What would you want to learn about? What is something that you would want me to talk about? Is there something you want me to talk about? I love doing free content. I'm putting together another workshop. I'm going to redo my karmic inheritance workshop after October. But for the time being, I am going to still keep doing transits. I think I'll always do those. But is there like a mini lecture, a mini teaching that you all are interested in where you would want me to go over something? Asteroids, signs, archetypes, anything, aspects. You just let me know and I will make it happen. Again, like I said, this channel is for you all. And I just appreciate each one of you. So I can't wait to see the Virgos who come into my door or into my Zoom room uh, for the birthday special. Again, that starts tomorrow. You can book that. Leos, it's the last day to book, and I can't wait to see you all soon.